Okay. Yeah. He's going to tell us something. Yes.
Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the South Oxfordshire and Vale of White Horse Council's joint scrutiny meeting. I'm Councillor Catherine Foxhall, and I'm co-chair of this committee with Councillor Stefan Gavrishak, who unfortunately sends his apologies this evening, but I'll be chairing this evening, and thank you everybody for joining us. So I'd like to welcome councillors from both councils on the committee. If I just do a roll call, and you can just say whether you're here in the room or online, or whether you're representing something. So we have apologies from Councillor Stefan Gavrishak. We have Councillor Lee Rawlings.
Present in the room.
Councillor Joe Robb.
Present in the room.
Councillor Ed Sadler has sent his apologies, so Councillor Kate Gregory.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for coming. And then Councillor Alexandrine Cantor. And then from Vale we have Councillor Judy Roberts.
Present in the room.
And Councillor Andrew Skinner.
Present.
Councillor Andy Cook.
Present in the room.
And Councillor Ron Basso.
Present.
Thank you ever so much. And my colleagues to the side of me, we have Candida Basilio, who is our Legal and Democratic team member, and Adriana Partridge, who is scrutiny lead. Lots of hats. So we also have cabinet members in the room, and I understand that this evening we will have Councillors Mark Coleman and Councillor Sue Cooper speaking specifically to the item. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you very much. We don't have any members of the public registered to speak this evening. So I think it won't be a particularly long or contentious meeting, hopefully. Just a couple of items of chair's announcements, just housekeeping really. We have a disabled toilet in the open space available for anybody to use. The fire exit is out of the door, turn right and down the corridor. We're not anticipating any fire alarm tests this evening, I don't believe, so it should be all quiet. So about this meeting, I think everybody's been involved in these meetings before, but this is a meeting in public, not a public meeting, but we are being recorded and broadcast live on the council's YouTube channels. Our cameras and microphones are very sensitive, so please be aware any rustling or whispering does tend to get picked up by cameras and microphones. Please don't use phones during the meeting unless for committee members that's where your meeting documents are. Please don't interrupt speakers. Please raise your hands. Adriana, Candida and I will make sure that everybody gets to speak. If you have spoken on an item, please allow everyone to contribute before perhaps coming back for a second round of points. Please keep questions short, to the point, and related directly to the agenda item under discussion. So before we get going on this evening's meeting, we have one major item for discussion, which is the garden waste permit proposals related to garden waste bins. Are there any declarations related to tonight's agenda from councillors, whether that's disclosable pecuniary interest, other registrable interests, or conflicts of interest? No. Okay. Thank you very much. So if we could please look at the minutes from our joint scrutiny meeting of 7th of December. This was a big meeting where we discussed community safety partnership, the BIFA contract performance, and the joint local plan options consultation. Are there any comments or corrections that anybody has on those minutes? No, doesn't seem to be. So shall I sign those ones?
You can do at the end if you wish.
Sign those ones. All right, thank you everybody. We're happy to take them as a record of the meeting. So look at the work schedule now. We have been collectively discussing some items. Again, all committee members, in fact, all council members as a whole, you're all very welcome to suggest items to us that you think should be on the scrutiny agenda. We've just been hearing about how Charwell have been talking to the police. We've also been starting to look at possibility of bringing Thames Water and the Environment Agency, inviting them to joint scrutiny meeting at some point in the future. So please do raise any issues, and we'll speak to officers and see how best we can get them onto the agenda and the work. But in terms of items that are already on the work schedule coming up, we've got Didcot Garden Town and the transformation programme update for both councils, and they're coming to our May meeting at the moment.
Chair, I
Councillor Robinson.
suggest that our February meeting is going to be rather heavy with all of the budget setting and a major cornerstone report. And I would suggest that we bump back the corporate plan by a month or so. I mean, we as things stand, we go for all the way from February down to May, which seems like a hell of a jump. And there might be space in that time to perhaps pop another meeting in and do justice to the corporate plan.
So you'll need to speak to Councillor Arlett about that, because that's specifically related to South. So any cornerstone corporate plan, those are the South scrutinies. So that's
Oh, sorry.
opposed to joint scrutiny. Yeah, the work programme does contain all scrutiny items coming up, and you have separate ones for Vale and South.
Fair point.
But yes, absolutely take your point about the February meetings. They are
Yeah.
big ones.
Um,
But yes, do speak to
The other
Councillor
point I
Arlett.
would raise is that whenever we receive the integrated care board report, we had concerns about health centres and dealing with that and moving that forward, and we weren't satisfied with what we heard. And I think it would be reasonable to ask them at some point if they might return and give us an update on that.
Just to second what Councillor Rawlins said, I actually sent an email about the idea of bringing Dan Leveson before this committee actually to discuss exactly what Councillor Rawlins has just raised. So I wonder if that might be something for us to look at for the work programme going forward.
So that's specifically a question about health infrastructure, the provision of
Particularly primary
buildings.
healthcare and how we deploy
Yeah.
the CILs and the S106s
Okay.
to make them happen.
Yes, I think that's
Do
certainly
we have to
something.
vote on that, or is that just a matter of the chair's discretion for purposes?
No, I think we can add to it. So yeah, certainly. I know Councillor Gavashak is certainly interested in that as well. It's something he's mentioned. So let's take that as an action then for
Thank you.
Councillor Gavashak and I to take that forward and to try and make that one happen.
Excellent.
And then obviously in terms of the scope of that meeting, if I could please ask all of you to feedback to us about what you would specifically like to discuss so that we can scope that out, so that make it as productive as possible. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, thank you both for that. That's really helpful. Happy with that one, Candy?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Any more items or any more on the work programme? No? Okay, thanks ever so much, everybody. Right, public participation, item 6, we do not, or item 5 rather, we don't have any members of the public registered. So we can skip over that. I've done those in,
Yeah.
I've done those back to front, haven't I? I'm terribly sorry. Luckily, we don't have anybody registered to speak to the public, so they haven't been forgotten entirely. But yeah, so item 5 is public participation. But item 6 was work schedule, which we've just done, and dates for joint scrutiny meetings. I think we do take your point that there is a very long gap potentially to the May meeting. So hopefully, maybe we could look at getting one of those other items in fairly swiftly, perhaps, if that was possible. Okay, so let's move now to the substantial item on our agenda this evening, which is the proposal for the garden waste permit. And that is an officer proposal. And the proposal is to introduce a garden waste permit scheme, so it'd be a shared scheme across both councils. It seems on the surface that this might be considered quite a small item, but in fact, this is a matter that does directly affect so many of our residents. And perhaps more importantly, it's a direct cost that we ask our residents to pay in order to provide a service. And while currently that's a discretionary service that we provide, it will be required under the Environment Act from 2026. We will be required to provide a service, but again, we can charge for that. So it is an important item coming forward, and it's something that there's great interest among our residents in. So our job this evening then is to hear from responsible cabinet officers. Thank you very much, Councillor Coleman and Councillor Cooper, for joining us this evening. We've also got officers on the call as well who we can ask to comment. And then we can make any comments or recommendations that we have to our separate cabinet. Jointly, we make our comments to our cabinet. Okay, great. Who would like to start?
So I'll introduce if you're happy, Chair. So this is on page 17 of your agenda pack, introduction of garden waste permits. So I should probably say that whilst you've got the environmental and waste portfolio holders, because it is to do with waste, this is actually also a transformation piece as well. So involved in writing, or not writing, but reviewing the paper with the 2 corporate services policy and programmes portfolio holders as well. So that's Councillor Andy Forsham in Vale and Councillor Andrea Powell South. So Andy Forsham is not online. I'm not expecting him, but Andrea will be able to address the sort of transformation pieces if there's any requirement for that. In terms of officers, the paper itself has been written by Sally Truman, who is online, and also Scott Williams, who I don't think is online, but Paul Fielding is there to address any questions specific to waste and the operation. So this report, which I'm very pleased to introduce to you, proposes a change to the way that customers pay for their garden waste collections to improve the service to customers. The proposal is to move away from the direct debit payments to a single online payment each year, to move all customers to one payment date, so they make a payment in February, March each year for the collection starting on 1 April until 31st of March, and also for customers to receive a permit or sticker to stick on their bin lid, which will clearly indicate to the crews that is paid for and should be emptied. So no changes proposed to the operation or collection elements of the service currently performed by BIFA, our waste contractor. This report doesn't cover the charge for the service that is being considered through the normal budget setting process, so we're not asking to look at the costings for it. This permit scheme is one used successfully by many other councils and will enable us to increase self-service for customers whilst reducing the considerable manual effort currently required to manage and chase direct debit payments. Why are we doing this? Both councils are committed to one new, excuse me. Both councils are committed to improving operational efficiency whilst also improving customer service. And this sits at the heart of our transformation strategy. This scheme will provide a number of benefits to customers. 1, it'll be less confusing, especially for those who have more than one bin and currently have different payment dates. 2, customers will have more control over their payments. Invoices are often overlooked, so they are not aware of a direct debit payment going out. And 3, permits will ensure that only those customers who have paid will get a collection. Officers report that we get a lot of feedback from customers whose neighbours aren't paying. This is because it's not easy for the crews to know which bin belongs to which house, and permits or the sticker system would solve this. So how will it work? We would procure a specialist permit supplier to design, print and dispatch the annual permit once payment has been received. Customers will be invited to set up an account on our customer records management system, which they then can manage their payments through to avoid having to enter their address and contact details each year. Otherwise, it's a simple transaction each year, which could take the customer less than 10 minutes. Use of the customer relationship management system aims to fix the communication challenges we sometimes face. For example, during the lockdown, when we had to suspend the garden waste collection. For those who can't make a payment online, they will be able to contact our customer services centre, who will set up an account for them and take payment. 2024 to 2025 would be a period of transition, and this report outlines a transition plan to migrate customers across for the new scheme to commence on the 1st of April 2025. Customers' direct debit payments will be reduced on a sliding scale this year to reflect the number of weeks between their normal renewal date and the new scheme commencing. This will be supported by a comprehensive communications plan using multiple channels to advise customers of the changes, the benefits, and what they will need to do. Looking at the costs, there are costs associated with transitioning to the new system, and these include IT development and communication costs, which are one-off payments and will be funded from the corporate transformation budget. The new system reflects a thorough analysis of the processes that support the garden waste collection service, making them fit for purpose. A perfect example of an invest to save policy for both councils. The cost to produce and post the permits, expected to be around £1.20 each, would be included within the full cost of the service used to set the annual fee. So we expect the change to be cost neutral once implemented. Using government notified for communication with customers will reduce the postage costs where we cannot use emails to currently contact customers. Thank you. Take some questions.
Thank you ever so much, Councillor Coleman, for that introduction. Would anybody like to start us off? Councillor Ward.
There's a lot of good things in here, but there are some things which I intend to oppose, or at least to challenge. Single payment period, good idea. Dealing with multiples together, good idea. The permits, good idea. CRM, good idea. All of the effort to capture the customer's contact details correctly, including telephone and email and so forth. All of that is right and proper and necessary. For me, I question once we've done all of that, why we don't have that then as a direct debit, with the direct debit all linked into the account and so on, so, which can all be automated, so we know exactly within our linked computer systems what's going on. And every year thereafter, the customer will send an email advising them what's going to happen. They'll get their direct debit for the whole year in, as you say, February, March. Game over. Our residents have therefore to do very little after the first year, whereas this system makes them go a year after year after year for what might be, was £60, might be a bit more next year, but it's really a very small amount to have to go online every year and do another update and do a payment online. It just seems like something which I believe is definitely, as the paper shows, going to provide benefits to the councils, but it's lumping the bad news on our residents. It's pushing them into doing something extra, and there will no doubt be lots of difficulty because people will forget and they won't necessarily do it on time and all of the rest of it. And all of that will happen more or less at one time of year in a particular time window. So I do think that I have some concerns that there may be unintended consequences arising from this. I'm not 100% on the idea of not having a minimum number of collections, because we had experience, haven't we, of times when, despite all best endeavours, we have been forced to put our statutory obligations first and to set back the brown bins. And if that happens in a small way, I think we've basically agreed between all of us that there shouldn't be a lot of refunds and a lot of administrative overhead from that, and that if it is really big deal, that we will probably, as the paper kind of tacitly acknowledges, have to give refunds anyway. But the suggestion is that we'll try and sort of set things up without a minimum number of collections. And I in that instance where there was a significant shortfall of collections, but we didn't give a refund, I just don't know how that's going to land. So I have a worry about that.
Can I ask Councillor Coleman and Councillor Cooper to come back on those two points?
Okay, I've got some other points.
I've got a very simple brain. I can only
making customers pay minimum.
Can I have a go? It's funny actually that Councillor Rawley's came up with that. I'd just written myself a question in the corner of my paper saying, can they have a direct debit every February, March, which would automatically put them back on again? And I'm sorry, it didn't occur to me while we were considering this. I think that's an extremely good idea, but it doesn't. We do have to. I don't know. I can't see any reason why that can't happen. But maybe officers want to comment, and it might be that for the first year we have it, and then we give people the choice of whether they pay, by direct debit or any other method
Councillor
each
Coleman,
year.
do you want to comment on direct debit specifically?
Can I just say, while I'm talking,
Yep.
and I'll shut up, the minimum number of collections, we did actually fulfil that during COVID, because you set a number smaller than the number you might get by doing it every other week. And so if you wanted one, as long as you put it small enough to make it reasonable, you could. But does it mean anything?
And obviously there was a time when we had to go on stop, wasn't
Yeah.
there? Just for,
Yeah, we
for
did
delivery
stop some,
drivers.
but
Yeah.
because if you read the contract, it was only 30 something collections a year, so we did actually fulfil that.
One other.
So could I address the minimum collections, and then probably it would be good to ask Sally to talk about the way the system works now and why we perceive the requirement for the change, because she'll know the details better than I do. So with the minimum collection, the intent here is not really to say, oh, because the vehicle was broken for 6 weeks in a row and we're not going to collect. This is down to, we do sometimes have residents say, my bin wasn't collected on Monday the 3rd. It was collected 2 weeks later. I want some money back for Monday the 3rd. And the administrative burden of trying to work that out is prohibitively expensive. It is a waste. However, and you say it kind of alludes to it. So we did ask this question of the officers, and obviously with my waste hat on, you know, I still want to hold Biffa to account to make sure they're doing so. So if there was a persistent missing of bins, or a rationale why bins were not collected, then we could pursue and determine whether a rebate would be given to the resident. So this is not saying that they won't have, it's just that we're not going to commit, because if we do, we will end up arguing over one missed bin, which is a nonsense. It has gone through legal, and legal were content that this is a mechanism that is used elsewhere. So we're okay. Sally, perhaps could I ask if you could just explain the issue with direct debits as they stand in the current system, and then whether we can use them for the permit scheme.
Thank you. Yes, Chairman. Thank you. So on the matter of direct debits, then councils do use direct debits with permits. There's a whole mixture of payment methods that councils have across the country. What we find is that direct debit payments are absolutely fine as long as they work. The problem happens when either a payment can't be taken, or a customer changes their bank account details, they cancel their direct debit for some reason, and that's when we run into difficulties, and it takes an awful lot of manual effort to chase non-payments. And I'll give you just an example of that. At the moment, the team have got 1,600 cases open where someone has cancelled their direct debit, but they haven't reached the end of their payment year yet. So we can't stop collecting their bins and cancel their account because they're still paid up. But the team have to go back to that every day and review it to see who they can close down, because they have to go through a process in contacting the customer to say, you know, your payment has not been able to be taken. Did you know that, first off? And many customers don't know that that's happened. And do you want to set up a new direct debit? And we have to send them a direct debit mandate again so they can reset up their direct debit. And I think the fact that we've got 1,600 open at the moment shows the committee just what a manual effort that can be.
Sally, if I can just come in on that, I completely understand the problem you describe, especially in this crazy situation where we haven't got a strong CRM system. We don't have the right details for our customers, so we can't just pop them an email and it all gets very complicated. I'm completely on board with having a stop and a change and collecting all the details and getting all of that stuff fixed. I'm just thinking that when it's a normal year and we're just collecting for the bin charges at the start of the year, then I would have hoped that it could become much more of a steady state and not requiring this annual rain dance of going onto the website. So that's really the essence of my question.
Thank you, Councillor Rollins. I think I've got lots of people lined up now. I've got a big list now. So yeah, if we can come back, if we go around the room and then come back in a minute. Thank you. Councillor Gregory first.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Lee, in terms of that direct debit. I think that asking people to go on every single year and put in their details again, I think is asking a lot of residents. And also some people just won't do it and then we'll have to chase them as well, or there'll be further correspondence. But yeah, if we're actually investing in a CRM system, let's make sure that it does all the stuff that we need it to. If people have come off their direct debit for whatever reason, an automated response goes out to say, oh, did you know that your direct debit is ended? If you want to restart it or whatever, do this. So yeah, so it's more to kind of support what you're saying, Lee. But yeah,
so my
if they don't go to a permit, do they? So that will prompt.
So my understanding of the system is they will set up an account. So it's not as if they've actually got to put all their details in again. They put their details in once. They just then affirm that they're going to make it. They want to make a payment for the following year, and they'll do that in every year.
Yeah, I just think that's asking a lot of residents. If there's a way that we can.
Well, they haven't done it with the direct debit.
They can do that in a bank though, or over the mail. Because one of the things I was going to point out, my mum would not do this. She's got an email, she'll set up direct debit, she will never make an online payment, full stop. Protect yourself from scams, and that's sensible enough, but she will not bank or make a payment online.
Okay, so I guess there is a question of saying, can we not use, as I do with perhaps the National Trust, my National Trust membership, I set up direct debit, which I've done online, and they track me on their database. Can the database, can the CRM not be used with the direct debit payments by an online banking payment or a card payment? Sally, sorry.
Sally, do you want to come back?
Sorry, Councillor. I don't understand your question. Your latest question. Can it not be used with an online?
So if we use the CRM to set up an account, a user account, but as part of that is I will say I would like to set up direct debit, and then the payment is made by direct debit, which would then be done infinitum until I decide to cancel the direct debit. Because we've set up the account on CRM, we've still captured all their data in terms of an email address or a telephone number. I'm saying, we can offer our preferred option is they do an online payment, but can we not offer a direct debit? Because the reason the direct debit is an issue is because we don't have their data to keep track of them. But if they make an online account, which our officers can help those who are, unable to do so online themselves. Sorry, I'm wittering on, but the question is, why could we not use could we use a direct debit in place of an online payment?
I think what I would say is that it takes longer to set up a direct debit than it does to make an online payment. I certainly know that in the district that I live in, we make online payments, and it's a very simple process each year. I would come back to yes, a direct debit works very well as long as the bank account stays the same, as long as all the names and addresses on the bank account stay the same. As soon as something changes at the bank, and customers don't think of garden waste at the top of mind when their details change, when they change their bank account. So they often don't let us know that there's been a change. So the direct debit has been cancelled, or the account has been cancelled, the bank account has been cancelled, and they don't make the connection. Basically, customers don't make the connection until we don't collect their waste, which could be several months after their account has been cancelled. So As long as it all works fine, it works fine. But it's when the customer makes a change, that's when the effort at our end to regularise those is quite intense.
Can I bring in Mark Minion now, who is our head of corporate services, who probably can contribute to this?
Well, I don't think I can add much more to what Sally's just said, thank you. It is that if everything works fine with direct debits, yeah, that's fine. But we do have an awful lot of examples where people's bank accounts have changed or their email addresses have changed. And we try to contact them and that payment or that correspondence fails. I hear what the committee's saying. It's certainly something we can take away. Our preferred option, as it says in this paper, is to use the payment system, which is Pay 360. So you apply for your permit online, it directs you to the Pay 360 mechanism, takes that payment there, and you get an automated notification that payment's been taken. So we know that's done. The delay with direct debits can be when people are setting the accounts up and it takes several days for that to work because the mandate's got to come back to us. And then the delay is on the collection of the waste from BIFA as well. I hear what the committee's saying, though. I'm happy to take that away to see if there are other ways of doing this. We've put in the report that GOS, who are the CRM, the Customer Relationship Management System supplier we are working with, their preferred way of working is to use this online payment. And as the report also says as well, if there are people who are not comfortable doing that, Sally's team, who are great at this, will pick up and will help people and walk them through that journey and take payment in another way. So we're not saying no, but I think our preferred option is to use Pay 360 and the online payment method. It is more immediate. It is right in front of people when they can see that payment's taken.
Can I then, I think if we move on then, if I can take as an action from the meeting, is that we would ask Cabinet to really make sure that they assess the implications of the payment systems.
Sure, I would argue that
Come on,
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Councillor Rawlins, Councillor Cantor has been waiting very patiently along with others. Councillor Cantor.
Not your committee. Well, maybe the odd one out, but it's an optional service. Direct debit is not working for a lot of people, for 1,600 cases. It's once a year. It's optional again, so not everyone. And I would say a category of people who can afford the £60 a year can. I think if it helps the council to save some taxpayer money in officers' time for something that is optional and not necessary, I think it's worth having it. Back on that direct option, when you subscribe to things, it's very often where you choose either online or a direct debit. And people move as well. Direct debit, they might forget to cancel it if they move, and then they get charged, and then maybe have to chase the officer again and maybe one year they can afford a green brown bin, and the next year they might not afford a brown bin and forget to cancel it. So I think it's an optional service. It's a luxury service, I would say, because you can dispose your waste otherwise directly into the recycling center. And so I think if it helps the council to save taxpayer money by reducing officers' time and processes of things, that I think it's just optionally, and many people who would not consider making this online payment would happily make other online payments, such as like Amazon or stuff like that. So I don't buy the thing that people are. We might have a minority of people who really never make it, but I think the taxpayer should not pay money in terms of officers' time for this little minority. And it's about checking your checking your source when you make an online payment better than not making any. No offense.
Did you have any specific questions as well? But I think
I was thinking maybe an app like a more general council app where people could manage their council. Oxford City has an app, and so maybe could manage your various subscription by it, but the cost will be, and it's probably a more general point, that an app where you could check and, but yeah, there's probably beyond that scrutiny, an idea for where you could have all your council services.
But it's a thought in relation to CRM, isn't it?
And £1 for the acronym jars for everyone who said CRM without explaining. But I asked Joe twice and I could not hear it.
I think I deliberately said it in full, although it is written as
Well,
CRM.
after it was said a few times. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Campbell, that's great. Councillor Cook and then councillor Skinner and then councillor Robb.
Hi, I've got one comment, one challenge and one question. Comment is the issue of especially elderly people using the internet is not insignificant. It's literally the reason that the NHS still send out letters. Age UK found out that 22% of over 65s don't even use the internet for email.
Yeah, but they
Never
can
enough.
phone to get the payments.
So if we, there is a lot of concern about councils going to digital only, especially with blue badges, but that's not us, so that's not the problem. But we should always bear that in mind. That's the comment.
Yeah.
The there was another comment as well. I accept that we're not looking at the price, but if it does come with an increase, especially if it's a significant, it will be reputationally dead on arrival. It will just be seen as a way to increase costs and sneak them in. And bearing in mind that the bins are playing with the live current for councils. Touch them, you can die. That we should bear that in mind. A challenge is the 6 monthly thing. We will have about 1/12 of our people coming up every month, which means that about 1 in 6 will be only 1 month into one of these 6-month periods. So anyone who has
Sorry, can you explain what you? I don't know what you mean by the 6 months.
When you start out,
you don't pay monthly. You pay yearly. You get an annual pass for 6 months at a time. So if, for example, your renewal is if you move in early August, you wish to start paying, you will pay for the entire period from the 1st of April.
Right, so I see what you're saying. So you mean if you move into the house when the current financial year is already started?
Yeah.
Sorry.
And I know that we can be looking at it. Oh, we're only talking a few quid.
Yeah.
People get very twitchy about paying for what they don't get.
That is true, but they don't have to join the scheme. They could wait I get it. It could be 11 months. They could wait 5 months and then join the scheme with the 6 months to run.
Yeah. So yeah, just mentioning that
Paragraph 21.
it was page 17.
Page 22 on it.
Yeah, the simplified payment structure for 6 months at a time.
Yeah, yes, but I mean, I think what this is trying to do is trying to make it as simple as possible, and rather than put someone where they've got to pay for the full year and not get a significant income, significant use, then we've chosen 6 months.
I think if it was quarterly, I know it might increase the thing a bit more. You would not get any pushback because just for a few weeks.
Okay, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a discretionary thing that people don't have to pay. They can wait for the 5 months and then join for the final 6 months. I can ask whether it's been looked at, and I get I think the issue that I have with when we try and change these things is the knock-on effect it has in terms of the officers' hours and the increased administrative burden, which will then come at a cost. I don't know how significant a cost that would be, so we could perhaps ask the officers to look at it.
Can I just say, it is a seasonal thing, garden bins. Okay, all through the summer, you're likely to want one. Come this time of year, are you desperate to get a bin? Wouldn't you wait till March, April,
But so if you move in August, you may be.
You want half a year,
But you would have to pay
a half
from
year.
April. Yeah.
No, it says, if you read paragraph 21, it says many councils do have a thing, but we're not going to. We're going to have every 6 months.
Yeah.
Okay, I think the point is, yeah.
But so if you move in a month before the start of the 6 monthly period, you have to pay for the entire 6 months.
If you're desperate to have it for that 1 month, yes. Well,
Could
you're going
I-
to get 7 months, aren't you? With the price of 12.
I'm conscious that we've been talking about direct debits now for nearly half an hour.
So Mark's got his hand up.
Yeah.
He might have the answer to or
Either Sally or Mark, do you want to make one last comment on direct debits before I move us? on?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd
the
spend my evening.
specifics of direct debit. This is about the
Half years.
Sorry, yeah, the half yearly
Yeah.
comment, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think I'd spend my evening talking about direct debits. I didn't realise they were interesting, but I'm happy to talk about it. The 6 monthly thing is an interesting one because when we were talking with Sally and Scott about this scheme, there are lots of councils that have introduced permits and maintain permits when you pay the fee, the same fee whenever you join in the year. We took a more diplomatic approach to this because it is a change of process for Southern Vale residents, that you pay one fee for the first 6 months and half fee for the second 6 months. And as Councillor Cooper's just said, that second half of the year is less of a growing season. So you're paying for less for putting less out. I would also point out, and this is a point that Sally's made to me a number of times, people moving within the districts may move into a property that's already got a bin in there that's been paid for. So in essence, they're getting a service for free for a few months. So that's something to bear in mind as well. I mean, I hear the comments about whether we should do 6 monthly. I think doing it any more frequently, that does put emphasis on Sally's team to manage that situation, to communicate that situation. And there is some technical work we'd need to do in the background about changing the payment that we take through the online systems, etc. So that's kind of why we come for a compromise on 6 month payments.
Thank you very much. That's great. Councillor Skinner.
Thank you. I've many times suggested to town council members that we are not in the business of being councillors to micromanage the way the council works. We've got over 20 people in this meeting, and so far we haven't got as far as micromanaging the waste system. We're just micromanaging the direct debit system. I agree absolutely with what's been said about direct debits. The idea of going on and paying a permit doesn't actually solve any of the issues that arise from people cancelling their direct debits, in my opinion. I was interested to see it says transformational goals, customer first, which clearly is not met by this, and digital by default. So since we're into micromanagement, I will, I think, simply say on paragraph 31, other options considered. I think we should chip the bins. It's more or less future-proofed. It's quite independent of any payment methods. If you haven't paid, the system, the cart will know that you haven't paid, so it'll empty your bin and then stick it somewhere to be collected.
I think that's essentially what we're proposing with the stickers.
No, it isn't. Well, stickers is entirely different. Chip the bins. I mean, the cost here of issuing these permits, according to this, is £57,000 in the first year.
And how do you check it through the chip?
£84,000 in the next year, £86,000. Chip the bins and you don't have any permits. There are no issuing costs. I'm sure some will be damaged as bins are damaged and so on, but it won't be £86,000. But I don't want to go any further. I'm just saying, I think in terms of considering other things, there are, and particularly in terms of having digital by default as opposed to coloured paper, there are other ways of doing this, and there could be massive benefits from that. Arguments about whether your bin was collected, no argument. We have a record that your bin was collected. Streets missed, no problem. The system will tell you the bins in this street weren't collected.
Well, that system has a question.
That's the end of my contribution to my.
I think there are any comments you cabinet members wanted to make on those. Was that much?
It's a nice idea. Do we know how much it costs to chip all the bins? I don't know.
I have no idea, but the chance of it being £250,000 for the first 3 years are small, I suggest.
Councillor.
Chair, I do have a comment with irrespective of whether we chip the bins or put a sticker on the bins, we still need to get the payments done, and this really is more about how we get the payments done. I mean, the mechanism how you mark a bin, you know, they've gone for the sticker, but really it's about payment.
But
well, whether you chip the bin or not, you still have to collect.
I've said I won't say any more. I'm not going to say any more.
Okay, thank you both. Councillor Robb.
Thank you, Chair. I have a question. I have a couple of things. The first thing is a question. Could you explain to me what happens when the bin staff, when the bin lorry drivers and the collection staff get to a bin and it hasn't got a sticker on it? Because 30% of the bins will not have a sticker on them in the early stages. Yeah. So that's quite a lot. The onus is on them then, isn't it? So there's going to be we're taking the onus away from the back office. And we're putting the onus then onto the staff who are at the coalface doing the collections. So just firstly, I would be interested to know what is the process. And secondly, I'm assuming this will have quite significant knock-on effects in terms of efficiency and getting through the rounds. Presumably because the onus is on those staff to work out who has a sticker, who doesn't, and then to take the next step to reporting that.
So it actually makes it easier because at the moment they just see a brown bin, and they've got to try and work out if we give them the list of number 41 has paid, number 43, and
they literally have a list.
Yes, so they'll know. Yeah, so they'll know that Councillor Coleman has paid for his bin, but his next door neighbour has not. But they won't know which is my bin because of the way they're stacked. Yeah. So the sticker will tell them that. Paul Fielding will probably correct me if I've got this wrong, but my understanding is that if they do come through and there's no stick on the bin, they'll use the pink hanger or similar scheme as we currently do now, and the bin would not be emptied. Yeah. And the residents then going to phone through complaining because they paid for the bin to be emptied and they've got this obscene pink sticker or hanger saying it's not been paid for, and then that would be checked and we would apologise because they had paid and we missed it and they didn't get the permit. Or we'd say, I'm sorry, your direct debit or your payment's now cancelled. Would you like to renew it?
Can I just add to that? Because I think Joe is implying that during the transition period, half the bins will have stickers and half won't. That's not true.
Well, we're estimating that 30%.
No, because the first lot of stickers don't start until the year in which the 1st of April. Yeah. So I mean, some people will have paid by whatever wonderful system we put in place. Yeah. But they won't get the sticker until it's ready to go. It will arrive during February, March, presumably, ready for April the 1st.
Yeah, so the operators won't be looking for a sticker until the 1st of April 2025.
It should be all or nothing.
It says in the report that we're assuming a take-up of 70%. That's just an assumption, I guess, for the sake of calculating numbers. But yeah. We're assuming, I assume that
we hope it'll be more.
The people will pay ahead of the 1st of April, in February and March. Yeah. They will because we all want to get these things out of the way as quickly as we can. We'll pay up front and get it ready for the start of 1st of April. There will be people who, for whatever reason, have missed that. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Did I answer your question about how they're going to check it?
Paul might want to.
So Paul,
Paul, would you like to comment on that, or Sally?
Yeah, hello. Just on the operations and Councillor Coleman got it pretty much right. I think the only thing to add is that the idea is that they will see the sticker on the bin, and that will make it obvious who has paid and who hasn't. And as has been said, if there's not a sticker, they can do the hangering to remind the resident that they might want to pay for the bin. Equally though, if if there isn't uptake, then we can start going out and collecting those bins that haven't been paid for. So that's one of the things that happens at the moment, is the bins stay out there, they stay in circulation, whereas this gives us an opportunity to, where somebody's either moved or they've decided they don't want the service but haven't told us. By not having the permit, the crews will see and they'll quickly know which ones need collecting, and we can collect those bins. So that's the other operational advantage. I think it's also fair to say that we're going to be realistic as we go through this transition year, and also at the start of the 25-26 year as we roll this in. And we're not just going to go 1st of April. If you've not got a sticker, we're not collecting, because we know that there's going to be some crossover. So the crews are quite sensible about how we do this, and we'll be advising them to make sure that we don't just stop collecting bins just because it's just clicked over into the new year.
Thank you, Paul. That's very helpful.
I had another, if I may. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. About no minimum number of collections. Given that we currently have a minimum number of collections that's low and that wasn't even triggered by, didn't trigger refunds even during the pressures over COVID, I wonder why we're getting rid of a minimum number of collections. It seems to me that would lead to unnecessary reputational damage and concern among our residents with no actual discernible benefit. So I'm not quite sure why we're getting rid of the minimum number of collections. I would feel a bit uncomfortable about paying for a service where there is nothing, not even a promise that I'm going to get something. I mean, of course, we're a good faith council. We are going to be providing service, but I think just for the sake of from what I can see, there's no actual benefit. I'm not quite sure why we'd be removing a minimum number of collections, given that's relatively low and unlikely to be triggered necessarily. And regarding direct debits, all I'll say about that is it's something that Judy mentioned as well, and something that Andy Cook mentioned. Absolutely vital that we enable residents to communicate with us by a range of means, whether that be by telephone, by them coming into the office here in Abbey House, by letter, and that we make it possible for residents to pay with cash if they so desire. I think that's really important for a range of reasons.
Thank you, Councillor Robb. Specifically on minimum service levels, I think that's a really important question.
Yeah, perhaps I'd like to turn to Sally, because I asked a very similar question. So yeah.
Yes, please, Sally. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, there are a few points on minimum number of collections. At the moment, our minimum number of collections is 20, and we actually provide for 25 collections. So we do have quite a lot of slack there. Really, it's Paul's team that really need flexibility to manage their collections if there are things like an extended period of bad weather. They need to be able to prioritise the crews to do their statutory collections, which are household and recycling, and this isn't a statutory service, so they do need to have that flexibility. The councillor who said that we didn't trigger the refunds during COVID, we did actually trigger refunds during COVID, and the council as a whole took a decision to give everybody an extra 3 months on their subscription for that very reason. I think COVID, whilst it was a very exceptional sort of event, we do have occasions when actually for bad weather a number of collections may have been missed, and we do get to a point where we do argue with customers over one collection because they think they've just had 19 collections and we think they've had 20 collections, and it does take them an awful lot of time. And to be honest, to provide a refund for one collection, which is the equivalent of about £1.20, is just not cost effective. We are discussing with legal these terms and conditions, so we will go back and have another conversation about minimum number of collections. And the other point that I just wanted to say was this is very different from a serious service failure. If we have a customer, for instance, who gets regularly missed and they've lost a number of collections, we would treat that very differently, and we would definitely offer a refund for a service failure. But this is just to give Paul's team flexibility to be able to manage their services. Does that help at all?
Yes, thank you. Could I bring us back to stickers briefly, please. I'm very keen to avoid single points of failure in all things. One of our single points of failure in this scheme is the sticker supplier. What work is being done to ensure that we are confident that that supply of stickers and the supplier, I'm presuming we'll be expecting a performance report from our sticker supplier at some point in the near future. So really, how do we understand, or how can we ensure that the stickers work? Thank you.
Okay, so shall I take that one first, Mark? So we're going through a major procurement exercise. Well, we will be, if this proposal is approved, we'll be kicking off a major procurement exercise. We have done some soft market testing with some of the suppliers in the market. There aren't a massive number of suppliers, and we've seen samples of their permit, their stickers, and certainly as part of that procurement, we'd be wanting to see the stickers. We would want to be making sure that they are robust, and they're not going to fall off the first time we have a rainstorm. The stickers themselves are tamper-proof, so actually, if somebody tries to peel the sticker off, it will basically disintegrate, so that they're pretty much fit for purpose, and that's certainly something that we'll be looking at quite closely as part of that procurement exercise.
Thank you, Sally. Mark, did you want to come in on that?
Sally's picked me best point, which is the tamper-proof stickers. There are very few suppliers in the market who do these permits. There's not a massive organisations that we can go to, but we have done that soft market testing, and there's one particular organisation who are doing this already for lots and lots of councils. They know what they're doing. They know how to provide stickers which are unique for each year, for example, and obviously in our case for 2 councils as well. They also provide us with a database functionality, so we can see the status of where the permit is. If when somebody's paid, if there is an inquiry, I've not had my sticker, Sally's team would be able to interrogate that database and say, well, it's in the mail to you. And as Paul has referenced earlier, when we introduce the scheme in April 2025, we'll have some grace period in there. We won't go out on the 1st of April and take everybody's bin away. We will be sensible about this approach, but the permit company that we've looked at, the permit companies we've looked at, I'm pretty content that they know what they're doing on this. This is their core business.
Lovely, thank you both. Councillor Roberts.
Yes, I mean, through all this discussion, a couple of things have highlighted to me that worries me. The fact that we're doing twice a year or not, and that we don't seem to have an IT system that automatically calculates all this for us. So I'm beginning to understand that this is a system that we're actually using. We're making sure we get more information from the customer by doing it, but we're not actually introducing any transformational IT into the system, so that all of this is done automatically. So it's kind of just transferring a manual system. So that's one question that I'm really quite worried about now, but hadn't thought of before, because I would have expected a fully IT automatic system to be able to take cash from somebody who wanted to come here, or direct debit, and then be able to calculate one 12 months, 2 12 months, and also be able to issue rebates for people who are moving house. If it's going to just be the same manual system we've been running on since 2010, I seem to remember it first appeared at Scrutiny, then maybe we should just say that we do go for the once a year, and then make it a selling point that if you're moving house, you say that you've got your bin is paid for up till this point, so that it becomes a way of promoting, you've got it, it's for free. And the problem with elderly is that as they get older, they actually are capable of using IT less and less. And that's the problem. We are having an aging population. So they may have been great when they were 65, but they're not probably so great at the same systems when they're 85, because they've all changed and they can't learn the new ones. So those 2 things. And it also worries me that, we don't seem to be planning for when it does become statutory. Because I would have thought, if you need to change your card details, for all the other things I buy, it pings you back an email that says your card details are now out of date. Would you like to go onto your website account and update them? So, you know, that's, you just update your card number and off it goes again for the, so you know, if we're going to plan, it's going to be statutory by 26. I think we need to plan for it. And in which case then the number of emptying that we can, you know, we have to do will be in law rather than what we decide we want to do. And I suspect we might have to put in a pickup service in exactly the same way we do for food. If you have a missed bin and a missed collection on the statutory service side, we currently now send out a special team for picking up the missed bin. And okay, we don't need to do that now, but to me, 26 doesn't seem that long away.
So,
You know,
so the statute then means that the local authority must provide a service.
I thought the government was changing it so that by 26 we will have to provide that service. Whether we like it or not.
Yeah. So we must provide a service, but we can charge for it. So that means that residents have the choice of opting into the service. Which we must be able to provide, but we don't have to collect from every doorstep. We do if they ask for it. But if somebody doesn't want to opt in, then we don't have to collect their bin.
Okay, if they've opted in, do we
But I think
have
it
to
might get up
collect
to the
it?
point where
Yeah.
you're at such a bulk level that might become an option, and that you might just have to do it exactly the same as we do it for the others. But you know, that depends on if, you know, if it becomes a service and everybody sees it as norm, you may find you've got so many customers that it's better to deal with the norm than deal with the abnormal. Depends on your customer and your viability.
Yeah. I mean, okay.
Yeah.
But we.
Anyway,
Yeah.
those are the 2 points.
So I think the two key questions really are transformational IT and
Yeah.
what planning is being done
For 26.
for 2026. So I don't know if Mark, if you wanted to add anything.
Yeah, on the last point about card details, that adds other complications in terms of storing that personal data, and we don't have capacity and we wouldn't want to store people's card details. It's a whole level of security that I don't really want to get into at the moment. In terms of transformational, it's on that journey, shall I suggest, and I hate using the J word, but it is a journey. We have bought a CRM. One of the first things that we're going to be using that CRM, customer relationship management system, for is this garden waste process, providing it gets approval. Because what we will be storing in there, as Sally referenced earlier, is the customer's name and address, which enables them with their own account login to see what transactions they are having with the council. One of the first will be, if we get it approved, the garden waste system, so they can see that they've got a live account on that. And as we move through using that CRM, things that they may report, such as fly tipping or bulky waste collections, they will start building up that information, that interaction with the council. So it is part of that transformational journey. It's one of the first steps on it. In terms of support for ageing population, I'll repeat what I said earlier. There is no way we would shut off other options for our residents. We want to encourage people where they're able to go online, because it is more efficient. They are in control of it and it's quicker. However, we will not shut the front door or shut the telephones off to support people who need that support. The online system is capable of reducing automated reduced payments, but with this system, we are introducing 2 payment thresholds if that's the way that we go. So that's what we're looking at. For the transition year, which is 24-25 financial year, we are going to do a reducing direct debit payment, which means we've got to go in there every month and manually do it. With the system that we're proposing, we wouldn't have to be doing that. I hope that answers your questions, but they're all good questions and a useful debate so far.
Thank you, Mark. Right, I'm going to go Councillor Batstone, Councillor Rawlins, then Councillor Cantor before we move to recommendations. Councillor Batstone.
Right. I suppose my real worry is that at the moment, with my garden waste system, I do absolutely nothing. And I think the vast majority of our customers, on direct debit as they currently are, get a letter through the post saying that's the amount of money for this year, and you need to do nothing else, which is what most of my other people that I pay annually do. And it would be really nice if, as a council, we could do that so that people really didn't have to do anything every year, which I don't have to do at the moment. I don't do anything with my garden waste at the moment, apart from see this letter and file it. So it'd be nice if we could get some sort of system to do that. And perhaps as halfway to that, could we perhaps give people the option of paying for 3 years rather than 1 year, so that they don't have to change their stickers every year. Just a thought.
Thank you, councillor. Yeah, bulk payment. Cabinet members, did you want to?
With a suitable discount. You know,
Yes.
you pay for 3 years, you should
I
get a
think
nice
You get a gold sticker.
discount, yeah.
Yeah, but the idea is that you get, and we'd have to send out 3 stickers if you pay for 3 years, because the idea is the colour changes each year. That's how you know that, you paid for that year.
But could you have a special colour for
Yeah.
3 years?
What colour? Well, yeah, but it would have to be, if it's a rolling 3 years, no.
Where would you start?
I mean, that's where you're better off with having a chip, as, Councillor Skinner said. But I don't know how much they cost or what the practicalities of
No, but I
chips
think
are.
it
They
should
do
be
sound
looked
a
at.
better idea.
I'd
maybe.
like to see it looked at. It wasn't a joke.
Multi-year permit.
I think one of the issues which we'd have to look at is what that might do in terms of bringing in revenue, because we do review the fees annually. And as we know from last year, the fees went from £54, I think it was 54 to £60. So that's, I know it's £6 isn't a huge amount, but if everyone chose to take the 3 years, then suddenly we'd be short of that money.
But you shouldn't be not in an inflationary situation. You might well be gaining. Because you've got the money at the beginning of the 3 years.
Yeah.
For the 3 years.
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is we'd have to consider, I think, what the impact that might have. I'm all for getting rebates, but but now I have to get the money in. Hope you turn down.
Councillor Rollins, you've been waiting very patiently for your
Yeah.
final question.
Couple of quick points, A and B. A, just last one on the word on the direct debtors. If they do bounce, different to how we are now, we will have the contract details to be able to get back to them, and they won't have a permit because they won't have been issued a permit because their direct debit failed. Therefore, they will have a reason why they need to fix this problem, which they never had before, because the loss of a permit means no service. Looking at the table at the back there, just let's recognise that there are very substantial costs here. We're looking at roughly 30 grand a year extra costs and actually 100 grand in the year of transition. The great hope is that somehow captured income that we're missing right now saves the day. But actually there's not a forecast in here or projection in here, and I don't know exactly how that's all going to work out. There is an assumption therefore in there, and it's not a free lunch. One little question that occurred to me was, would it be reasonable to have a higher initial charge when you first enter the system and you first issued with a bid? Wouldn't that be a reasonable thing? And it might help to address some of the points that Andy was making about whether it feels wrong that you're only paying for sort of 1 month in that initial period you come in, that there might be something to wrap it up with an initial joining fee or something that A, gives us a little bit more income, and B, is perceived to be fair and reasonable.
Okay.
Just a thought.
Thank you.
One very quick point.
Councillor Cantor and then Councillor Roberts, and then we're going to move.
Yes, I was suggesting about having colored stickers, but I heard that was already thought about. I would like to remind the council that the aging population is shifting, and more of our aging population will be the population exposed to computer systems. Like, for example, my in-laws are the aging over 70s and are completely literate with IT because the aging population is shifting toward those who have been all their life exposed to IT, which might not be now, but I think we are not in the same situation that we were 10 years or 20 years ago, with people completely not exposed to IT. I think there's a balance to find, having to do absolutely nothing with garden waste and having higher costs due to council staff compared to people who have their optional services having to do something while reducing the cost of the officer staff for everyone. I still believe that it's an optional service. If you have the time to do your garden every 2 weeks, you have the time to do one payment in any form you can. And reducing the cost of the officer staff for everyone, because it is again optional service. The bulk payment, why not? But then it makes it very complicated with the color because every bulk payment will have to change from every year. And bulk payment doesn't protect you against life changes. You might move within, and then what the council do, you might die, you might be expelled of your home or whatever. So you might, or you might just be renting a house, which, and the fact that we have the issue with the direct, I would assume that if the direct debit fails and you are not able to, the brown bid should be taken away. We should not have brown bid out there without a valid membership. So technically, for me, if the direct debit bounce back, we should remove the bins as soon as possible, because people should not use a service they haven't paid for, which means that we might play a musical chair with bins with people having not paid and have. It's an optional service that people should chase to have, not the council should be generous to offer, and then we see later for you to pay or not. It's an optional service that they can have for free if they can, and not everyone has a garden. So it's, I think for these services, it is a fair game that the cost should be put on the customer rather than the council.
Thank you. Councillor Powell, did you want to comment on the comments made just then?
Really, I mean, I've been fascinated listening to the discussion, and it really is sort of an illustration of how passionately people feel about their bins, whether they're residents or councillors. I've been sort of contemplating, thinking back to the problems we had with communicating with our garden waste customers back in COVID, and that was a bit that caused us a lot of grief with our users. And reading the paper just reminded me again how utterly broken the current system is. And I think, you know, if this was a case of if it ain't broke, don't fix it, then I think, you know, many of the problems, many of the criticisms, not criticisms, but the suggestions we might be you know, well, thinking obviously very carefully about, but the system does need changing. And the whole point of the transformation programme is not simply to replace an existing bad system with a new way of doing that bad system. What we do want to do is really improve the whole process, both for customers and for ourselves. And I think what the team has done is a very thorough analysis and has taken advice from a lot of other councils that operate under this system, and it's clearly a better system than the one we have. It may need finessing into the future, and it may need improving. I don't know if there are any other councils who are chipping their bins. Maybe they are, but you know, maybe that's the solution for the longer term or for the future. But I would hope that we get to the point where we all agree that the system needs to be improved, it needs to be made better for our customers, but equally, you know, it is important that the system works for us and that we maximise the revenue from the service, and that we, you know, embed those efficiency savings. I think it's perfectly reasonable to ask the staff, to the officers, to just have another think about the direct debit option, because you know, obviously we're hearing very clearly that that would be a good service to offer. But like I say, I think, you know, just we mustn't forget the whole kind of transformation process that we're going through. This is about making ourselves much more efficient and being much more customer facing, with allowing customers to do their own self-service, which will really help them. It's what people are getting used to more and more now. It'll certainly help us. But thanks very much for the comments. I think it's been a very helpful and, I say, surprisingly lively discussion. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Councillor Roberts, this is definitely the last.
Very quick. From the paper of note 1, I'm assuming that the high 57,000 and the 84,000 is due to the main mailing out costs. It just occurred to me, why are we mailing out stickers? Why aren't we giving the list of approved paid for houses to the bin collectors and they sticking them on.
Well, I think the problem with at the moment would be, say, for example,
Because that's what they do at the moment. They check their list and make sure that it's one on their list.
they do, but say they came down my cul-de-sac and there are 5 bins all piled together, they wouldn't know which is number 1, which is 3, which is 5, which is 7. So which bin would they put the sticker on?
Most of them have got numbers on because they don't stand outside your house when you come back to them either.
Am I allowed to put a motion?
Well, yes, I was just going to move us on now. We've had a nice big discussion. And I was going to suggest our job is to make recommendations to our cabinets. And so, yeah, I was going to ask the committee to put your motions, make your recommendations, please do, so that we've got very clear feedback. This has been a good and long discussion, and as you say, quite passionate. So, Councillor Skinner, please go ahead.
Well, I would like, I mean, this card has a chip in it, yeah. It's not for the future. This is very much today technology. And I would like them to go away and look at the savings from chipping the bins. And not only the savings, but the improved customer relationship that I believe could be got from it.
Councillors Rob and Campbell.
I won't be supporting this recommendation because the paper before us, we're looking to implement a transformation that will take effect on the 1st of April this year, I believe.
2025, so we've got
next year.
A transition year now.
I'm afraid I just don't believe that there'd be the time to look into the possibility of chipping bins. I'm not against the idea in the long term, but I think if we're, this has been a long time coming as it is. And I'm very concerned that if we were to sort of go off course and look into chipping bins, we could delay even further. And as Councillor Powell pointed out, the system is utterly broken at the moment. The data we have is totally inadequate. We're missing a whole lot of fees and charges that we could be otherwise getting from customers. And the system is inefficient. So I would not like to see us being waylaid by questions about chipping bins at the moment. Potentially something for the longer term, but not something I think we should be recommending that officers spend time on at the moment.
Thank you. Councillor Cantor?
Just a quick comment that as an engineer, we say that if you chip a bin, you have to buy the card, you have to buy the reader, you have to buy the person who has to develop the software, you have to buy the math, which I don't think would be a rejection.
Of course you would.
Do you want to second Councillor Skinner's motion to look at bin chipping?
But can I just say, I think it's something that we should look at, but maybe not at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, well, it could be ongoing because this system will still need to be in place and how people pay for it exactly. I mean, what a chip would do is do away with this annual £1 a time sending out the stickers. But that could be introduced in a couple of years' time. Doesn't have to. It's not as time critical.
I think we can minute that we've had a substantial discussion that has included the idea of chipping and pins, and perhaps if officers chipping and pins. Chipping bins. Perhaps officers obviously have seen this discussion and heard. Perhaps they can just keep it in the back of their minds to look at in the long term. Councillor Cantor.
I would propose a motion to bring this report to cabinet. Is that what we're?
So we just need to make any recommendations. So we have a scrutiny committee. What do we want? Is there any recommendations we would like cabinet to consider? Any changes we want them to consider?
We want to recommend that we want to consider the impact of adding the option to still have direct debit for to offer one payment and investigate what are the impacts of carrying on with offering direct debit.
Okay.
And also the other payment methods that you mentioned, like cash.
Yeah, and carrying on the vast variety of payment method that one can.
Ask Cabinet also to explore the possibility of continuing with a minimum number of collections.
Yes.
Okay, so if I stick with the payment methods, so is our recommendation we want to ask Cabinet to ensure that they've considered ensuring the continuance of all options of payment, including direct debit, if possible?
Yes.
Perhaps.
Yes.
Because
yes.
I think our reaction to how important that is likely to be reflected by our
Yeah, just agree with the recommendation, but explore what would be the impact of having direct debit as a backup option if we explore.
Okay.
Can I just make a comment, Chair? The paper and the officers and cabinet members are not proposing to remove any of the other payment options, like in person over the phone. So you can't make a recommendation for something that we're not taken away.
Okay.
So I think you probably need to reference the recommendation around the direct debit, but then would also wish the cabinet members to, I don't know, hear your support for the other range of payment.
Okay.
Yeah, Adriana said it.
Not very well, Candida will make
We
it.
follow Adriana recommendation.
Put a note here, variety of payment methods.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Okay, thank you. And then Councillor Rob, sorry, you were then
Yeah, we
saying.
add that we would strongly recommend the cabinet to maintain the minimum collection.
Minimum collection, yes. Okay.
Yeah.
If it doesn't
A
cost
minimum number of collections.
for nice PR.
Because that's as reputational as
I
much.
think it's reputational. Yeah. I think our residents might need reassurance around the service that we're proposing to provide that they're paying for.
Yeah, you pay for a contract. The contract should have some terms.
Do we have agreement on that recommendation as well?
I think so.
Yeah.
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 Nods all round.
I mean,
Excellent.
this is about exploring that option rather than mandating clearly. Yeah.
And I would suggest that we consider for the future, not necessarily now, a higher initial charge when people first come on. I think that would be
comfortable with that. Yeah.
When they first get the bin, when they first get the bin.
When they first get a bin, or when they first go from 3 to 5, or whatever it is, when they get new bins, there's a going on charge.
Just we're always prepared for costs when they've just anyway.
Exactly.
Okay.
Two other areas that you referenced. One was making the payments quarterly rather than 6 monthly, and then there was also a suggestion around multi-year permits. Just a reminder, I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, but the quarterly was, we heard from the council that it might be a huge impact on staff.
Yeah.
And I personally think that gardening is a hobby. So staff time is paid via council tax or whatever. So everyone is paying regardless of having that hobby or not. So I would want to make the life of the council as easy as possible to minimize the officer's time for an optional and hobby service.
I do get that, but and I will agree not to be pushing the 41, but we have been emphasising a lot that this is optional and a hobby. For a lot of people, if they're trying to keep their garden from being overgrown, it's not exactly a hobby thing to get rid of the stuff. More than 3,000 pensioner households in our district alone, and there'll be a similar number in the south, have no car or van. So if they want to upkeep their garden and not have it overthrown, they're not going to trundle a brown bin down to the local tip.
And in support of that, Andy, they also are sequestering carbon whilst they're doing this. They could just concrete the whole yard, couldn't they?
Yeah. So we have been saying a lot here about how this is optional, how it's a hobby. For a lot of people, it's borderline, not exactly optional if you've got a garden and no car.
Yeah, but more people have no garden as well. So.
Yeah, a lot of people do, which is why it's
but the cost should not
paid
be
service.
on
But
everyone. So
we shouldn't be dismissing people too airily on, well, they don't have to do it. Because, as I said, more than 3,500 households.
Okay.
Yeah, but I didn't mean it in a negative way. It's not
We should
negative.
bear in mind that we're here to serve our residents, and that's the purpose.
Can I propose that we could wrap this up by really emphasising to Cabinet perhaps the importance of the comms around the accessibility of this and ensuring that there's a really clear plan in place that's developed. We've got a year to develop this to really ensure that we are reaching everybody where they are and to ensure that we don't panic people or worry people about how they're going to pay or how they're going to keep up with this, or feel that they've got to go and find a young person to do it. So I think perhaps
I don't think we can overemphasise that issue, because playing with the bins makes Cornish pasties look like nothing when it comes to people blowing things up out of proportion. And it's when you change anything to do with the bins, it's always a yes minister, courageous and even controversial thing to do. You tread carefully, or you're screwed.
so. Is I propose I recommend.
Do you want to read that and see if it makes sense as a?
Yeah. So the motion that Candida is suggesting we put, well done for getting that into 5 lines. Scrutiny committee asks cabinets to consider continuing to offer direct debit payments, and scrutiny committee also supports maintaining all other payment methods such as cash and over the phone payments. Committee asks that the cabinets consider retaining the minimum number of collections per year. Cabinets should ensure that a clear communications plan is in place to inform the public on how to pay and to keep up with the changes. Any other recommendations to add to that very succinct 5-line motion?
I would just add to thank the staff. I think the fact that we've had, I hope, constructive discussion around the points doesn't change the fact that there's a lot of really good stuff in here, and a lot of good thinking has gone into it. So I just want to make sure that that's reflected as well.
One thing that left off that list was an initial charge of when you first get a brown bin. Or
Do
was
we
that
want
on
to
that
make
list?
Yeah, because we'd have to re-motion it. I mean, that's not really
Can we
part of
consider
the
that
scope
in
of this
future?
report, is it? That would be part more the scope of a future report that comes regarding the actual costing of
Cost.
these
I think
services.
Okay.
Yeah.
We've always tried to encourage people to do this from the other way round.
No, you don't.
Unless you include
My
something
green
about
spiel in a minute.
chipping, I will vote against it. Because we have made an assumption that looking at chipping is going to cause delays.
I thought
We
the
shouldn't
cabinet
make that
members
assumption.
agreed to take that away
Yeah,
for future
so you can
consideration.
include that, include those points as a future consideration, just say, and it asks cabinet to consider, yeah.
And also
the
the
initial
start
charge as
charge.
part of
Yeah.
any future
Yeah.
developments
Okay.
of the scheme.
Because actually the permits are a step towards a chip, aren't they? They're-
Well, yeah, but the
Yeah.
chip
Give us
is
a
like
physical way.
for exchange of hardware, having the software support, it's quite a lot of cost though, is it? It's not.
Sorry, we don't know that.
Okay, we're going to ask cabinet to consider.
Yeah. Doesn't just arrive like.
And also.
I bet you it's cheaper than one chip to be cheaper than one permit.
As long as we don't get Fujitsu to do it.
So word of this motion, do we need everyone to say they're happy with it?
Yeah, so,
Nominated.
Okay, so what we've got is Candida has very kindly put together a kind of collective motion for us, which I'm very happy to propose, including asking cabinet to consider in their future development the possibility of chips and of initial one-off payment or initial payments. Do I have a seconder? That motion. Thank you, Councillor Rawlins. Are members of the committee happy to support that motion?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh,
it's my motion, is it?
Sorry. Thank you ever so much, Councillor Coleman, Councillor Cooper, and all our officers online, Councillor Powell as well. I will go home and tell my children to look forward to their sticker.
And not to colour it in, because otherwise it won't get picked up.
Thank you, everybody. I shall declare this motion. Meeting closed. Thank you.
And the motion closed.
And the motion is closed.
Stickers were.
Yeah, like holograms.